Hey, family. You know what time it is. It's your girl, Delisha, your Millennial Empowerment Catalyst, coming to you live on another episode of Level Up Your Confidence. It looks good on you. Tonight's topic, we are talking about holding the vision with the amazing Crystal Harrell. Woo, 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 woo. And we use this show to inspire, encourage, and uplift young women around the world through our stories, which can be someone's survival kit. Sis, you are not alone or someone's plan. Wow, that is awesome, awesome, awesome. So tonight we're talking with Crystal Harrell. And Crystal Harrell is a PhD in student. She's a PhD student at the Yale University in Public Health that serves part-time as an Army Medical Service Officer and certified academic success coach. She conducts religious/spiritual based research in low-income African American communities to further investigate how public health officials can improve the narrative of Black health in America. Crystal received over 670,000 in scholarship awards, including the Bill and Melinda Gates Millennium Scholarship and the Yale School of Public Health Dean Research Award. She shares details on her academic journey to help other non-traditional students get ahead in her book, Crystal Clear, A Journey of Self-Discovery. Crystal graduated with her Bachelor's of Art in Sociology, Master's of Science in Human Development and Family Studies. She recently attained her Master of Public Health from George Washington University. Please help me welcome our guest for this evening, Miss Crystal Harrell. Woo! Yes, so Crystal, I know in the Bahamas it's Friday at 7 p.m. and in your time, Bailey, it's 7 a.m. Saturday. So I know how that feels, and I won't keep you long to your morning. But hey, we're gonna get it going.
No, thank you. Thank you so much for that intro. I honestly, it's okay. It is 7. It's early. But this is good practice for me because all the books that I'm reading, everybody is like, you need to start waking up early. It's really good for you. And I'm like, if you knew how I was in the morning, you would like not ask me to do that. Because it literally takes me some time to just like come to myself. And I don't know why. I've always been this way since I was a little girl. I always just loved sleep and sleeping in. But I would love to get up early this morning. Like, this is something that will get me up in the mornings because it's important. This is an important topic. This is everything that you're doing is important for young girls, people that look like us, and maybe women that don't look like us. You never know who your message is going to touch. So this is important.
That's awesome. Thank you. And I know how it is with that morning when you know you just get up. You don't want no one bother you. You just want rest. And that meditation time to start your day. So thank you again for agreeing to come on. And to our viewing audience, please let us know where you're tuning in from. And if you have any questions, just put it in chat and I'll ask Crystal if she can answer those questions. So on the topic, Crystal, holding the vision, can you share with us your story, your journey on holding the vision?
Yeah, so it's strange because when I think about the first time I had a vision for my life, it honestly started in my childhood. So I was born and raised in public housing in rural Alabama with 9 other siblings. And when my father died from cancer when I was little, I was raised by a single mother since then. And so I always just had this vision that my life could be so much better. And I remember when I was a little girl, I would like write down my dreams in my journal. And it's funny, I still keep a journal to this day, 20 years later, but I just always felt that there was something better. And I would go to like my friends' houses and I would see like, their parents had money and their parents had like this big house and they would have like a pool in their backyard. So I was seeing better. And as a child, I knew that was available to me and my family, but I just didn't know how to do it. And so like, I remember writing down like one day, like, I'm going to be able to like have a house big enough for me and all my sisters and brothers to have our own room. Like that was my vision as a child. And it's just like now I can see that possibility coming into fruition. Like, you know, obviously most of my siblings, you know, grew up to have their own families and have their own houses, but I still have this vision of my mom having her house that we can all come back to. And I know that may seem small, but like as a young girl, like that was a big dream for me as a young girl being raised in public housing. And so now everything that I went through, like using my education as a tool, has allowed me to hold that vision and understand that like I'm doing this because I want to see my vision, you know, come into fruition. Like I want to be able to help my family. I want to be able to show people like me that it doesn't matter where you start. It only matters, you know, how you end up, and you have more power over your life and your destiny, regardless of your race, your gender, regardless of any of that. You have power to decide what vision you're going to have for your life.
That's awesome. You have the power. Wow, you have the power to hold the vision, whatever vision you want. You have the power to make that come into come reality. You know, sometimes your tongue get tired up when you're trying to be so perfect, but hey.
No, we don't even have to try. Like it's just we are perfection in our beingness. And it took me moving to Bali and understanding everything like we talked about before the show. Like we are already perfection. We don't have to try to be anything other than who we are. And our job is to show up as this being so that we can be used to touch other people's lives. Like Dr. Miles Monroe, who's one of my favorite motivational speakers and like, you know, just ministers of all time. He talks about how God placed something inside of you that he knew you couldn't miss. And it was the person that you were always meant to be. Just like the tree is already inside of the seed, the person that you're meant to be is already inside of you. And that's just a belief that I carry with me no matter where I am. And everything that I've been through in life, and even like taking this step to try something different, has just reaffirmed that, you know? I was never the smartest person in my class. Like I failed the college courses. Like I talk about it in my book, but like literally I was never like your traditional smart person. I just knew what it took to get to the next level. And to me, that's intelligence. I don't use the biggest words. I don't know. Like sometimes you wouldn't even know that I went to Ivy League because I'm so ditzy, but it doesn't matter. I love my research and I know what I'm doing when it comes to research, but I don't know everything.
That's so true. And then I think you can relate more with persons, you know, because once they feel like you're way up there, they don't know how to reach out to you or ask you for any help if they really, really need it. So I'm glad you brought up that point too. That's awesome. That's awesome. So Crystal, what inspired you to keep going after your dreams, keep going after your vision?
So it really took me developing the confidence in myself. And I know that this is what this is all about, right? This show is teaching people how to develop that confidence. But I didn't start the process of trying to develop my confidence until I understood who I was. So a lot of the times in society, honestly, we're just socialized a certain way. We're programmed to look outside of us for the answers, for the solutions to our problems. But all the books that I was reading, all the motivational speakers like Les Brown, Lisa Nichols, all the books I was reading, like The Power of Your Subconscious Mind or Think and Grow Rich, they were all telling me to turn inward. They were all telling me that everything I needed was already inside of me. You know, it was in my thinking. So I started to develop my mind. I started reading personal development books, listening to people like Jim Rohn on YouTube. Like I started getting mentors that I've never met and probably thought I would never meet. But you never know, because I just met Les Brown for the first time last December. And so it's just like, you really have to develop your mind and your thinking, and that helps you develop your confidence. And it all is through self-education. You know, like you can read books, you can watch YouTube videos. You don't need to go to school for 30 years to be educated. All you have to do is pick up a book and just educate yourself.
That is so true, because usually we use that as an excuse to say, well, I can't afford to go to school, you know, to get the education. But you're saying we don't need that. We could just go on YouTube, read our self-development books, listen to podcasts, listen to motivational speaker, just to develop our mind, to cause us to look inside. So that's good. I like that. And were there any times where you wanted to give up, or were you depressed or rejected? And if so, what pulled you back on track?
Ooh, um, it's one of those things like it takes a village. I don't think any successful person is self-made. It all comes from your community. Who are the people in your surroundings, in your network? I knew I needed mentorship, so I started reaching out to professors, to like writers and stuff. I wanted someone to just show me the way.
Mm,
I wanted someone who was in a place or position that I saw for myself, that was willing to teach me everything they knew or everything they just didn't know when they were going through what I was about to go through, or something similar to what I was about to go through. And it was my mom. Like, I remember when I was 23 and I was finishing my first master's in Alabama, and I was in like the worst place in my life. Like, this was like, for me, this was rock bottom. um, and I was just like, I had my own place, but I was just like in a really, really bad mental state. And because I lost my dad at so young, I was so attached to this trauma and this identity of being a person who dealt with abandonment issues and
mm,
who dealt with depression and anxiety. Like, I was going to therapy, but like it wasn't really like working the way I was wanting it to, because all we were doing was talking about the issue. I was like, I needed something more. Like, I need to like really like I needed something that was going to hit at the mental and spiritual level, at the subconscious level. So I was just going through everything from my childhood and realizing that like my childhood trauma was really affecting my life. And I was just so tired of it. I was tired of it just controlling my thinking and what's possible for me. I was tired of the panic attacks that had started once after my dad died. And then I was like in my first relationship, and we were together since like high school. We were talking in high school, and then he broke up with me. And then, so not only was I dealing with the issues from abandonment and childhood trauma, but now I had someone reinforcing this narrative I had about myself of being this abandoned person, or this girl who didn't feel like she was good enough to be loved. And I had went all my life trying to prove to people that I was good enough by being
mm.
this overachiever. Um, and so to me, I was like, okay, once I get my master's, once I get my degree, I'll be happy.
Happy.
And I got my degree and I walked across the stage and I was not happy.
Mm,
And at that moment, it was just like at 23, I knew, I was just like, I don't know what I have to do, but this is the day that I'm deciding to change my narrative. This is the day that I'm deciding to stop using my past as an excuse to be depressed or to feel any kind of way. I didn't know what it would take, but along the way, things showed up in my path. And I think it just stemmed from me making that mental decision to commit to my own personal development. And so 3 years later, now at 26, so much in my life has changed. Like the girl in the book and all the stories, like I don't even identify it with it. Not that I'm ashamed of my story, because that is not the case.
mhm,
It's just so much of me has changed and evolved that
mhm,
it's really difficult to see myself vibrating at such a low state, because it's just like, wow, like I was really hurting. And I never said anything about it, and I never really talked about it. And my mom was really the person who was telling me to write a book, and she was praying with me. Like my parents never went to college; they couldn't afford it. But my mom was really like that rock for me, because she was always praying with me, always encouraging me. She was telling me it doesn't matter what I needed to do, I could do it. My dad, before he died, he was educating me and making me believe in myself. So it really took a community. It took my parents, their love and support, and it took my network of mentorships and their guidance, and it took my friends, just being there for me. So you have to leverage those relationships. You have to understand that like you don't have to do this by yourself. You
mm,
really
mm. That is good. You don't have to do it by yourself. And just like this show, you are not alone. We've been there, we've done that, and we've given out tips and tools to help encourage you to not stay where you are, but you can get up. And Crystal, I know you mentioned that you went to therapy, right? And in today's society, when persons talk about therapy, they think that something is wrong with it. It's a stigma that something is wrong with you. So how did
don't.
you felt in that moment going to therapy?
So there's a quote that I like by Einstein, and it says, "The mind that created the problem isn't the same mind that's going to solve the
Wow.
problem." So I knew that because I was inside of the picture, because I was the one inside of the issue that was, my childhood trauma or my neglect or what I felt like, was bad that should never have happened to me. Like, no child deserves to watch their parent die from a chronic disease. It was awful. Um, and I kept telling myself, like, okay, like I can't solve this issue because I don't understand it enough. I don't have the mental capacity to even like understand like what happened. So I knew I had to go to someone else and maybe get a different perspective. But like I said, it was just mostly just talking, and it provided a space for me to really vocalize a lot of the emotions that I was feeling and to make sense of my emotions. And then when I moved to DC at 23, so I finished my first master's and then moved to Washington, D.C. to get my second master's in epidemiology. And I started going to hypnotherapy, which is um, something slightly different than regular therapy. They really tap into like your subconscious thinking. And to me, that was the most beneficial because my therapist ended up being like one of my mentors and just like the catalyst that started, like my spiritual growth journey. Because I think a lot of people get the difference between spirituality and religion mixed up, but it's two different aspects to it. And I knew that my relationship with, my creator, and I'm not here to convert anybody, but this is just my personal story. Like my relationship with God was suffering, and so I needed someone to like help me understand that that he wasn't something outside of me. Everything I needed was already inside. And so I had the power to really turn inward and to tap into that powerful, just unlimited source energy, intelligence. Like everything I needed was already here. I just needed to show up. Crystal needed to show up as who she was meant to be. And that was the process of hypnotherapy, was getting me where I needed to be so that I could see the reality that I was creating.
Mm, interesting, interesting. So how was your journey now?
Oh, it's amazing. There's still some rough patches. Like when you start the process of healing and you start the process of personal development, it's uncomfortable. And a lot of people don't really talk about the discomfort that you experience as you're shedding, as your ego is really like just letting go of everything you thought you were. And you're literally telling your ego and forcing yourself to realize that you are not separate from anyone or anything in your environment. This is why it's so important for us to just like take good care of like the earth that we live on, because we literally are harming ourselves. And you think that when you do something like being around the Balinese people who are mostly Hindu, has really taught me a lot about like karma, which is honestly the same thing about law of attraction. Like what you put out, you're going to get back. Or the law of, I think the golden rule, like, do unto others as you would. Like every religious belief has this same concept. It's just spoken in a different way. And so it's really teaching me to like just realize that whatever I choose to do to anyone else, whatever I choose to put out in my thinking, or in my words, is going to come back to me. And so it's just been like a process of just, like I said, just shedding, letting go, realizing that no one has the ability to influence my beingness unless I give them that power, that I had to release the blame for anyone or anything that has harmed me. Like dealing with, I no longer call it like my childhood trauma. I don't even, like I said, it's in my words, it's in my thinking about what has happened. I looked at it as an opportunity for me to get closer to God. Like every situation that has happened, even my first breakup, everything has just honestly been the catalyst to like get me closer to the person I was meant to be. And so it's honestly like nothing has changed in my narrative about myself, but everything has changed in my thinking about what has happened to me. And so that's where I am kind of on this journey and just like showing up as this person and being more vocal about my story, because I was always trying to be so perfect in the past to prove that I was good enough.
Mm,
Um, and it kept me silent. And when I wrote my book and finally published it, and the messages that I was getting from people that I didn't even know, about how they identified with this part of my story or this helped them, like it was honestly just like a reality check. And it was just like I felt like God was showing me like, um, this is why you had to go through a lot of the things that you went through, because I was using you to show others that there's always a way out. And my
mm,
mom really helped me get to that conclusion. And it was just, yeah. So it's a humbling process for sure. But it's also very liberating to be able to walk in this truth and not feel like I don't have to apologize for anything that or any part of myself, and it feels good.
That's great. Yes, I love it. And like you say, everything you went through was pulling you to become the person you are today. You know, that sometimes we are so ashamed of our stories. We don't want to tell anyone. And I guess you have to be at a point where you are healed in order to share your story, because some story will be like, hey, hold up, share this. And then sometimes I don't think you should share your story if you're still living in your story where it's still hurting you.
Mm-hmm.
Like you mentioned, you went to therapy because you knew that, hey, there was greater inside of Crystal, and you needed to get at a place where God needed you to be.
Mm-hmm.
Good. And then I like the part where you said it's very humbling, especially when you have to share all those things off. Because me, I remember, hey, even now standing here, you still get that nervousness, that you're nervous and you're scared. But I'd be like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, Alicia, it's not about you. It's about reaching that young girl who needs you, who doesn't have a voice to speak up,
Mm-hmm.
to hear that, hey, you went through this, and she can identify with you that, hey, if you can do it, I can do it. So, yes, so I like the way you said that. And if you had, if you could have given your younger self any advice, what would it be?
There's always like when I hear this, and I've thought about this a lot actually, but it's always so much that I wish I could have said to my younger self. But I think the biggest thing and the first thing that came to my mind this time around was to be patient.
Mm,
And I was so busy trying to rush the process. And this was another thing I talk about in my book, but I was so busy trying to achieve that I wasn't living. I didn't recognize anything that I was achieving or going through. Like when people like read my bio, like how you did, I wasn't present for 85 to 90% of that. I don't remember it because I was so busy just trying to get to the next level and trying to rush the process, trying to prove to everybody and
mm,
myself
that
that I
you
could
were
do
doing
it.
that. Mhm.
And that's why I was unhappy when I walked across the stage because I wasn't really living in my truth. I wasn't doing it for the reason that I knew I could be doing it for, which is serving as an example. I was just trying to prove and trying to achieve. So I would tell myself to just be patient. And now that like I'm 26 and I see how fast time goes, like I definitely would have like emphasized that, like, girl, slow down. I would have.
Okay. Thank you, Stephen Chronicles. Thank you. He said he loved your story. He likes your story.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. So, Crystal, share a little about your book.
Oh yeah. So the book title is Crystal Clear, A Journey of Self-Discovery from Public Housing to Ivy League. And I wrote it because I wanted to highlight my academic journey from being raised in government, government assistance to being now at Yale University, because I realized that a lot of students who look like me were slipping through the cracks because we were first gen, low income like me, and we had no knowledge of navigating through this system that was created to keep people like us out. And so I wrote this book because it was my way of serving, because I got certified as an academic success coach and I was realizing a lot of patterns, but I'm only one person and I'm also still trying to complete my final degree. And so there was no way for me to try to coach all these students. And so the best way that I could have done it was in a book. And my mom kept pushing me. She was like, because every time a student would reach out to me on Instagram or the students that I was coaching, they would always ask me the same question. What's your story? How did you do it? And I realized that, okay, if I wanted to really help them, I was going to have to put it in a book, because I can say like, go, here's this book. Like I wrote it. It's really cheap. Like just go ahead and like, if you need help, I'll, help you get it. Like I send copies to people as well, because I really, to me, the message is more important than the profit.
Mm,
And I think that a lot of people get so wrapped up in like, trying to do this whole like business move and trying to do this, and they really forget the reason they did it. And my reason for writing my book was to serve, and it was to be an example and to really just raise the awareness of the potential we all have as human beings. Like I said, despite, where you come from, because I actually realized, and I was looking at the statistics for people like me, and where I come from. And I looked at the statistics of what my life should have been. And I understand that my life could have taken a completely different path. And so it's honestly just me showing how grateful I am that my mind and the wisdom and understanding was developed in me to know who I am at a young age and to be able to share that awareness with people in my surroundings. And every day I get closer to knowing more about myself. And we never really stop the process of healing or self-development, because we're always growing. And when you stop growing, then you're, no longer alive. So it's just like I really wanted to share that and highlight all the struggles, the ups and downs, and the successes, the failures. Like I said, I failed my first course as a chemistry major in college. It was a chemistry class, so I had to make a decision. What was I going to do? I've been rejected from over half a dozen schools before getting accepted into Yale. I was told by a guidance counselor that, my dreams of, going to my dream school were impossible. And even if I got in, my family had no way to pay for it.
Wow.
And then I ended up graduating from my dream school with 2 degrees, with $0 in student debt. So it's just like one of those things to show you, like, I'm not saying this to impress you, but to impress upon you that your dreams are possible. And it starts with the self-belief. It starts with the confidence in your ability to do it. And that's why it's important to have people, mentorship in your surroundings, because sometimes when you don't feel like you can do it, they see further than you do,
Mm-hmm. That's so true. That's so important to borrow the belief of your mentor, because they can see further. And sometimes, you just don't believe in yourself until someone say, hey, I see greatness in you. And if you don't believe, hold on to that belief, walk in that alignment. So yes. And what advice can you share with our audience on holding their vision?
This is a good question, and I really like it. I guess the advice would be to develop the confidence in yourself through self-education, through reading books, watching YouTube videos, whatever you have to do. But whenever you start developing your mind and your thinking, you start to realize how possible it is for you to achieve your vision for your life. And then you're able to walk in more confidence towards that goal. And the way that I did it was I started looking for people who went from nothing to something. And I named a few, like Jim Rohn, Les Brown, Lisa Nichols. I started looking at their stories, and I realized that they tapped into this mindset. And success is not a secret, it's a system, it's a mindset. And so whenever you start working towards your vision, just understand that you have to develop your mind. There's no way that you're going to achieve your goals if you don't know who you are. Some people do, which is why when they get to that point of success, they lose everything because they didn't do the work to really get inside and really, like, you have to shed your limiting beliefs about what's possible for you. So just understand that your vision is always there. And like someone told me, everything you need is here but you. So you have to just show up.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it from Crystal Harrell. Thank you for joining and enlightening us on your journey. Any last nuggets you'd like to drop, and where can someone find you?
Oh, thank you so much. I just wanted to thank you for allowing me to share this space with you and for holding this platform, because the work that you're doing is so inspiring. I told you, like, this is big work. Like, this will get me up at 5 a.m. Like, I was willing to wake up at like 6 just to do this, because like this is really good work, because this is the mission, right? This is the mission. This is us using our personal stories and our ability and our passion to serve people. And that's the most important thing. This is how you leave behind a legacy. So thank you for holding this space and creating this space. And you can find my book on Amazon. It's Crystal Clear, A Journey of Self-Discovery. And you'll see, like, it's a blue title with me on the front. So you should be able to find it pretty easily. And I guess, like, one thing I would say, or one last piece of advice, would just honestly just to understand that you are enough. And that was something I didn't really get a lot of growing up. I didn't really know, throughout my journey, no one really ever explained that concept to me. that who I am as I am is enough. And every stage that we go through has a purpose. And so you don't have to be so hard on yourself. Even the points in my like journey where I was at my lowest, that served a purpose, because if I hadn't went through it, I wouldn't have a book. I wouldn't be on this platform right now speaking to you. So just understand that you're enough as you are, and everything is serving you so that you could serve other people.
Well, thank you, Crystal, again. And like I say, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, from the one and only Crystal Harrell, who has shared her journey with us on holding the vision. Yes, she has enlightened us with the tips, tools, and resources that we can use to help us to be a better person, help us to continue holding our vision. So like I say, thank you again for joining us. Please, if you have not liked or shared the page, I encourage you to. You can find me on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, yes, YouTube. You can find me on those platforms. And please, if you know someone who would like to share their story, who feel like it's encouraging and uplifting to someone, please reach out to me. I love to host them on the show. And yes, let's continue building up each other and inspiring and encouraging each other. Remember that your voice matters, your story matters, and you matter. Have a good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. And thank you again. See you on another episode next week, Friday, on Leveling Up Your Confidence. It looks good on you. Have a good night, morning, afternoon, evening. I know I said that a lot. And before I do, I want to say thank you, Steve Chronicles, for tuning in. Thank you for your comments. Thank you so much. And again, I'll say it for the third time. Have a good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and see you next week. Goodbye.